It's a very flexible learning environment. It's incredibly rigorous, but we want students to be in control of their own journey. We certainly embrace, a liberal arts education and the ideal outcome of interpreting knowledge and going out to be an effective citizen. We want that. We just want students to do it in their own way. And so students actually get to go through what's called shopping periods. So the first 2 weeks of every semester, students have a wide array of courses, and they get to go in for the first 2 weeks and see if they like that course, look at the syllabus, hear from faculty, talk to the other students in that class, and see if it meets their academic goals. And then ultimately, after 2 weeks, declare that course as a part of their curriculum. And I think one of the other unique parts of the open curriculum is that in the interest of exploration, getting out of your comfort zone, learning it interdisciplinarily, we allow students to choose the grading option associated with each course. And so students can take a course for a grade, or they can take a course pass-fail. This is not to imply in any way that taking a course pass-fail makes that course easier. That's not the case. But take, for example, the humanist who is really interested in literary arts. That's their passion. They have a really interesting idea, and they want to pair it with a student in developing an app to support youth somewhere. They've never taken a computer science course before, and they're terrified because they hear that this course can be pretty challenging. That's an amazing course to take pass-fail, because you then give yourself the self-permission to take that course. You don't have the fear of failure hanging over your head. If you don't pass that course, it doesn't show up on your transcript. And again, this is not to suggest that it's easier. It's all in the interest of exploration and interdisciplinary study. And so I think for the student who really embraces exploration, wants to learn interdisciplinarily, wants to be a microbiologist, but also wants to explore theater or classics, Brown and the Open Curriculum is an amazing institution for that type of student.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever shared you this story. I was on an airplane filled with Brown University volleyball players, and talk about Brown really attracting lovers of learning. And they were doing this high advanced physics class, all laughing, working together, and they're doing all on their laptops and everything. And I'm like, it's like, wow, what Brown preaches is just so true, and I was just observing it. And it's like, this is some intense stuff, but not only do you give this so much flexibility, but you also give that flexibility in working with each other. And they were just finished a game in the competition and was going back to campus too. So, that is just a great program that infuses so many other great things too. And so
Absolutely.
At Brown University, so what type of prospective students are you looking for?
Well, I think you nailed it when you said that they have a love of learning, and that really defines the type of student that we're looking for. So often it's very easy to do this, to look at high school as 4 years to get into college, or college as 4 years to get a job, or get into, law school or medical school. You kind of forget that there's this remarkable journey between point A and point B. And so we're looking for students that are going to embrace every moment of that journey in between point A and point B, not just students that are looking to get out on the other side. And so students that have diverse interests, or students that have specific interests, but the openness to explore somewhere else, and someone who's really just going to love that experience in between, that's the exact student we're looking for.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times students think, well, okay, I'm that good student, I'm that good tester, my resume is solid, but they forget, but did you dive in further? Like, did you read that publication from that class, even though it wasn't required for you to do? Are you like blogging about this topic just because you loved it for fun, and just do something out of the box just for the heck of it?
Absolutely. Those are some of the texture elements that we talked about earlier, and they often come out in letters of recommendation, where faculty are able to expand on curiosity that guided a project in a new direction. Those things we're hyper aware of those, and I'm sorry, I know I sort of interrupted you. I get so excited about this, but when we're sitting around that committee table, one of the questions that's asked over and over and over is, how has the student demonstrated a joy or a love of learning, and what texture surrounds their interest in and out of the classroom? We're talking about that all the time. And so, yeah, this all just speaks to that.
Yeah, I wish we could. I think the biggest mistake in education we've done is tell students, sit down, be quiet, and listen, and repeat what I say. And and we have to encourage more students to go ask those questions, do those things, and that's what Brown's trying to inspire, And so if more students know that and share those stories, even if they felt they were inhibited, but they did it in a different way. I think a lot of times students think like, oh no, Ivy League doesn't want to hear that story because it's so different. I'm like, oh no. That's the story they're looking for.
Right. Yeah. I think so often students believe they need to have, invented something, developed a cure for something, or have a heartstring story that tugs at the admission committee. And there's a small percentage of students that fall in that group. And, so I really always encourage students to think more and more about that story. When you're answering a question on your application, don't just think, oh, how do I answer this question? Think about how the answer to that question builds on your story. If you started your college essay in your junior year because it was an assignment and you thought it came out, spectacular, and that's what you want to use in your application, that's fine. But how is that building on the story that you're adding to through supplemental responses, your alumni interview? I think it's just so important to look at that all together. And the last thing that I would add, without going off on too much of a tangent, is that I like to stray away from that holistic word that we often hear. And I always say, I'll say that in an info session, and everyone just laughs. And I'm like, yes, I know. But so then I say, well, let's focus on a different H word. It's a human process. There are humans that are evaluating your application, and the reality is we all have, biases. We do our best to, check them at the door, leave them behind. That's my responsibility as an admission officer. But we approach every application with an open mind. We read every single piece, and we have to, because when we go into that committee and we're lobbying for a student to be admitted, we have to be able to answer those questions and get to know them. So share your story, share it. To the best of your ability. Ask friends, ask family how they would define you, and make sure those elements are coming through in your application.
Yeah, I think someone give a scenario for kids to saying, like, if your name was off of all your essay or personal statement prompts and someone found it on the floor and they read it, they're like, oh my God, I know who this belongs to. Because a lot of times people go into this cookie cutter formula, and I'm like, no. What makes you tick? What makes you move? Right. And that's like, just with your love, you're apologizing, going on tangents, but this is your love. Like, that's what you're looking for, is the kid who goes on tangent because they love this so much. And that's a story. Right. That's the texture you want. That's going to make a beautiful symphony with that student and with your campus.
Yeah, it is such an honor to do what we do. I learn something new all the time. And I never forget what an honor it is to serve in my role.
Yeah, no, for all of us, it is. It's such a great honor for us. So besides Brown University being a campus focusing on the quality of its teaching, research, and unique curriculum, what else should students be aware about Brown University? Since maybe this is the first time they heard of Brown University, listening to this podcast, because we're focusing on looking at Ivy Leagues, and we're very lucky to have you, Michael, from Brown. So if someone's like, oh, I never heard of Brown University, what else besides the open curriculum and that love of learning, can you tell us, our listeners, about your campus?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much that you can learn through our website about our academic programs and the things that you've just mentioned. And I think to an extent we've touched on little pieces of this, but I would really focus on the culture of Brown University when, if I had to highlight something that really distinguishes us. We like to say that we're a culture of questioning and a culture of kindness. And I believe this is all, the result of the open curriculum. I mean, Brown has a long history of being an institution that supports the beliefs of students, a progressive institution, being the first to admit students of all religious backgrounds, sort of that spirit of Roger Williams and the founding of the state of Rhode Island. But, so that certainly comes in, I think. But the culture of kindness piece is so important. It's not uncommon for a first-year student to be studying alongside of a fourth-year student, because through the open curriculum and shopping period, they've wound up together. And because we promote interdisciplinary study at every turn, you're working with students across the community, you're thinking entrepreneurially, you're trying to solve problems together. And, no one at Brown is really looking to get ahead at the failure of someone else. And the current students, alums, they will all share that. The culture is just so supportive. It's rigorous. You will place the pressure on yourself to do well. But our students aren't sitting there talking about GPAs. We don't calculate them until you graduate and ask for one. They're not talking about grades. They're really talking about their love of learning, what they're getting from a class. They're encouraging students to take risks together, to solve problems together. And those are some of the things that you can't really fully understand until you're a part of a community. And so I would just say that, for the student that wants to come into a supportive environment with that love of learning, whether you're very decided or completely undecided, it's a wonderful place.
Yeah, I'm fortunate to remember before the internet was around, Brown University's application. I remember working with students. They said, wait, Brown wants us to handwrite our essay. Don't they want us to type it on the typewriter? I'm like, no, they want you to make it really personalized so that there's a connection between you and the college when you're handwriting it. And everyone was thrown back by that, but also very intrigued. And I go, and that's the Brown University magic. That's, an example of that. Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it is. It is. So if students want to apply to Brown University, where can they find your application?
Sure. We're a Common App school, so I always, encourage students to go to the Common Application website. They can always go to the Brown University undergraduate admission microsite, where they will have plenty of links to guide them to the application.
Yeah, so at commonapp.org is a great website, and if you're a ninth grader, you could start the application, but until August 1st of your senior year, they could look at those campus-specific questions for Brown University. Yeah, it's a great application system that they have. Michael, thank you so much for helping our listeners learn more about Ivy Leagues and spotlighting a lot more on Brown University. Every alum that I've interacted and worked with at Brown have been amazing. Brown University is so lucky to have you, and thank you again for being part of our show.
I'm so thankful. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Michael.
Have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to SI Counseling Podcast. Here we help students find information to help them improve their opportunities throughout high school and beyond. SI works to help students grow into individuals committed to faith, justice, leadership, service, academic excellence, and compassion so they can be with and for others. You can follow us on social media at SI Counseling on Twitter, and go to our website at siprep.org, and under academic departments, click on the link to counseling. Thank you again. Until next time.